Hello everybody and welcome to our weekly Q&A. I am your host Mod Ayiza and I'm joined by the ever so wonderful mods Bruno.
Hey.
Mod Husky.
Yeah.
There's a really big delay today, isn't there? Mod Lenny.
Hello.
And lastly Mod Nin.
Hiya.
Hello, hello, hello. Alright, I gotta do the usual. I gotta ask how everyone is, what have you all been up to, then we do some announcements, then we've got something cool to show you, then we've got some merch to go through, we've got some images to show off, and some questions to answer. So this should be fun. Before we get into that though, I guess I should say, Modnin, is this the first time you've been on stream, or you've been on stream like once before?
I was briefly on the birthday live stream, the 8th birthday one. This is my first Q&A, yeah.
Okay, first Q&A. Did we ask you the typical kind of like questions on the birthday stream in regards to like
I don't think we did, no.
If you could? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, if you want to fire away.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way nice and early. All right, so first of all, tell everyone who might not know who you are, what do you do on Old School?
Sure, so I'm Mod Nin. I'm an engine developer on Old School. I joined the Old School team about 10 months ago and worked on RuneScape for like 3 years before that. That's pretty much it.
So whenever we make memes about engine, we're making them about you. Fantastic.
Yeah. the engine team's been growing. It's actually grown pretty significantly recently. So.
And there's a lot of things in the works that have been worked on. Obviously, we've got clans, which requires a lot of engine investment, group Iron Man, and lots of other exciting things too, which I won't talk about because I'll get told off if I do. All right. So how long have you played Old School for, Nin?
Old School, I'm pretty sure I hopped in on day one, but kind of didn't really stick around for the whole thing. I probably have got like 100 hours since then. I've been playing pretty actively recently. I joined RuneScape for the first time back in 2005. I didn't know what I was doing because I was like 10. So I remember playing Castle Wars and mining a lot.
Damn. Those are like the OG activities back in the day. Mining coal and playing Castle Wars. That's all you had to do.
And selling lobsters at Varrock West Bank as well.
Brilliant. All right, so what was that, Bruno? Sorry.
Entrepreneur.
Oh yeah, very much a good old businessman. Normie, Iron Man, or are you even next level here, Nin?
I'm an ultimate Iron Man on Old School. Go all the way.
Something stuck in my throat. And how's that for you? I think you're the only UIM that's a JMod, right? At least that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just taking it at my own pace. I'm like not end game. I've never had like a main that's gone to end game. I don't even like have a main. If I ever get like a cool reward from a clue scroll, I just drop it to the ground. But yeah, I'm just like taking it completely at my own pace, and it's actually really fun. Ultimate Iron Man, like the limitations that it gives you like a ton of like really meaningful goals to work towards. I really kind of like how that works.
I think if I had more patience, I would definitely carry on playing my UIM. I had it for about a week, and it honestly was probably like the most fun that I'd played. Like I'd had playing Old School, but I knew that was going to be very short-lived when it came to the longer grinds, because I remember how bad they were on normal Iron Man, yet alone UIM. So
yeah,
I have a massive amount of respect for anyone that can play that game mode.
I just finished up my medium clue grind, and that was like a couple of months.
Didn't it only take you well, actually no, I think someone got really lucky recently. I was remembering the chat, but you had a pretty long grind for that, didn't you?
Yeah, so I was looking for, you need like a god meter to be able to store a rune crossbow in a stash that you get like during an elite stash. And I got the rune crossbow from like a dragon. I was doing clues for ages. There's 6 you can get on that drop table. So you think like, oh, that won't take too long. But I got ranges before I got the god meter. It took me like 150 something medium clues. So,
damn.
I got there.
All right, well there we go. At least you got it. Okay, so outside of your UIM playing, maybe it would be related to UIM, but if there was one thing that you could remove from Old School without polling it, what would it be and why?
Oh my god. I'm not sure there's anything that I want to remove.
What?
I don't know.
Well, that's because you can't use anything because of UIM.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I would say like the Ultimate Iron Man restriction on the spice rack in the player-owned house, but actually I want to leave that there. That's such a troll.
I was going to say that's going to get some good old. You'll get some good karma from that, from the UIM community. I know there's a bit of a meme, a long-running meme with them. I think we just keep it that way now, just to carry it on. All right. In the flip side, if you could add something to the game without polling it, what would it be and why?
Okay, so what I really want to see is some lore behind the random events, but like not too much lore. I want like a quest that kind of answers a few questions, like why are there trolls asking me to play pinball? Who is watching the Quizmasters show? Why is the sandwich lady here? But then just like add more questions and not properly like tie up any loose ends. That's what I want to see, and you could have some good rewards there as well.
Well, thanks for that, because I've never
buff your Dr. Jekylls.
Yeah, I just wanted my stamina potions from Dr. Jekyll, and I was getting really annoyed.
and then it made you think, what's the law? I've never once wondered why trolls were asking me to play pinball until now. So, yeah, that's.
And now you want to know.
I won't be able to. Yeah, no, exactly. Now I do want to know. You got it exactly. Spot on. All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Nin. Oh, go on.
I said the one that gets, maybe not related to you, Nin, but why does Jekyll want like a torso, and then I go to my bank and he's like, oh no, never mind, bye.
He's allergic to banks. He's an Ultimate Iron Man. He's allergic to banks.
It was really annoying.
It's proper annoying, actually. Yeah, that's something that I'd probably want to know more of. Like, why can't they go into the bank? They're just like, nope, sorry, that's not allowed. You can't get it out from there.
There's something shady going on back there.
You must think if it came from a bank, it's probably really stale. So he only wants the fresh things in your inventory.
He wants the freshest of herbs available off the streets only. Well, all right, Dr. Jekyll. I think we need to be careful of that character. Maybe we don't want to know the lore behind Jekyll. All right, let me quickly fire around and figure out what everyone else has been doing and how you all are. I guess, seeing as we're already talking with you, Nin, you may as well let us know what have you been up to this week.
I can't really say too much on what I've been up to. Just kind of, engine team is busy.
All right, so you're working on all of the secrets, and how's your week been so far? How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. I really honestly don't know what I can and can't say. So I've been having a good week. Leave it at that.
I'm glad to hear it. I needed to make sure I at least asked how you were, because I forgot to. I just asked you what you've been doing. So
yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate it. Does anyone ever ask back? How are you doing, Mod Ayiza?
No one ever asks me how I am. I just end up asking myself. I'm like, well, no one asked, but I'm doing okay. Got a bit of a headache today. Actually, I've had a real bad migraine since yesterday, so trying to plow on. But yeah, it is what it is. So, Mod Druid, how are you doing? You just said no one asks you, so I thought I'd ask you. Can the stream hear you? The stream cannot hear me, but I'm doing fine. Just sitting here with all the chats open. Cool. I'm glad you're doing fine, Druid. He's getting ready to show you all some cool stuff in a bit, which I'll get to. All right, Bruno, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, yeah. Excited for April to be over. That's what I've been doing. I've just been working on clans recently, so that's coming on pretty nicely. We're pretty close, I'd say. That's all I'll say.
All right, any interesting bugs that you found so far?
Not really, no. Haven't found that many bugs in clans, so that's fortunate.
Okay, I guess it makes it nice and easy for you then. So why do you want to see April out of the way? What's wrong with April, Bruno?
I don't know, it just hasn't been that fun, I guess. Actually, the bit where like things opened up a little bit again was fun, but like it hasn't been that fun since, so yeah, just been a long grind of a month.
Fair enough. At least we had good weather here in the UK, apart from like today and yesterday decided to start raining. Well, it is what it is. Okay, thank you for that, Bruno. Husky, how are you doing, and what have you been doing this week?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. What have I been doing? Things some members of the community that I wouldn't do. The equipment rebalancing stuff, kind of wrapping up that design and getting it ready to put together, hopefully for a blog towards the players. So yeah, good stuff there. It's still got to go through team approval and look at all the design work and stuff. And probably less less worrying is I've also been working on a Deadman design that's in team review. So no spoilers of when and what, but that's been quite fun to get my hands on some PvP content. There's a lot of people internally seem to be quite excited about it so far. So yeah, really changing up the way players are like used to doing Deadman. Hopefully.
It's definitely a very big twist on the standard or previous Deadmans that we've done before. It's very different. I'm very, very excited to see what players have to say about it, actually, because it's always interesting seeing things internally. But I think, not to say that your design is bad, by the way, because it's not. It's great. I actually do really like it. But I feel like there's a lot more of a bias internally to like looking at a document. No one's going to be overly critical as like, I don't know, Jimmy, not the Jimmy from YouTube, by the way. It's just the name I always go to. But, little old Jimmy playing RuneScape who just wants to go absolutely crazy on social media, being really rude. As much as I don't like people being rude, the point I'm trying to make is it's a lot more often that you'll get people give you like, genuine like criticism on a design. So I want to see them pull it apart and figure out the parts that we forgot about or maybe didn't think about because we were more like excited over, damn, this is cool, this is different. Yeah, it should be good.
I'm in the same boat.
I'm not going to say any more about Deadman. Yeah, we'll let them rip it apart. And hopefully, I don't think there will be too much to rip apart, to be honest, but there are definitely points that a lot of the veteran Deadman mode players, I think, will bring up that perhaps we just overlooked. And that's the beauty about working with communities, isn't it, really? We get to have multiple rounds of feedback and changes. A blessing and a curse at the same time. All right, Lenny, how are you doing? What have you been doing this week?
I'm doing really well. I've kind of just been pestering Nin a lot, really, and working on a lot of really cool stuff that I wish I could talk about, but I'll leave it be.
We've just got Team Secret in here today. It's going to be a fun round of questions. Like, yeah, can't answer that one. Sorry. But there are things we're going to show you, all right, and there are questions we are going to answer. But before that, let me just quickly get through the announcements, and then I'll stop talking. All right, first of all, game update. So ahead of the release of A Kingdom Divided, we've been working hard on reworking the Arceus spellbook. So try out the new spells by jumping into one of the special beta worlds today. This update will also brings changes to the Camdozal Ruins and Temporos. Find all this and more by using game update. Seen a lot of interesting feedback coming in regarding the new Arceus spellbook. So please keep posting your threads and such on Reddit, tweet at us, post on the forums and such, and we will be actioning all of that when we're able to. It'll be interesting to see how many changes we actually make following from the beta, but we'll get a post that will explain all that. Next is TOB. Last week we started speaking about A Night at the Theatre and 2 new Theatre of Blood modes. Following your feedback, we've made some changes to the rewards for the hard mode. So check out the blog to see what's changed with TOB. Spoiler alert, new cosmetic overrides. They look cool. Next up, Poll 75. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the recently updated news post for Poll 75 as well. We've had a lot of information going out recently, a lot of blogs, so make sure you check in the news page for everything in there. This poll specifically focuses around mid to late game PVM changes, so take a look at the 50+ questions that we're going to be offering before voting starts tomorrow. Read the blog today with Poll 75. Next up, we have merch. 2021 marks 20 years of RuneScape, and we've added some merch to celebrate. So you can celebrate in style with a special black and gold map of Gielinor, available as a print or a tee. I don't like it when people say a tee. It's just a t-shirt. Anyway, not all we're celebrating. Angelscapes has now designed a mammoth 200 official pins and keyrings for us. So treat yourself to the new Void Seal pin, Thieving Skill Cape keyring, or check out the 200th design limited edition Fire Cape keyring. They need to stop bringing out limited editions because I'm such a shill for buying them.
It looks
and every
so
time
cool,
I do,
though.
I add like 3 more pins in. It does look cool. I'm just gonna have to do it. Oh my damn it. Visit the store today with merch. And as always, if you have anything you'd like to ask the team or myself, please at OldSchoolRS with your questions. All right. Oh my god, I thought I was going to show you some images, but there's another thing I need to talk to you about, okay? So, lag, all right, in game. something that gets brought up every now and then. Recently, we've been made aware of an issue where players in Old School are experiencing some intermittent lag during play. It doesn't affect everyone. It's not all the time. Very much a small amount of people randomly during the day. We need to basically gather more information. So to help us gather more data on this issue so we can investigate it further to see if we can find a cause for this, please do !support. That link will take you to a forum post where you can list the information that we require. We'll take that info, have a look into it, and then update you as and when. So if you are experiencing any issues in regards to lag in game, please do !support. Follow the link and post the info that we ask for in there. All right, now I'm done with announcements. We can look at some player-created content. So if you want to have a look at these yourself, !UGC. There's a lot of commands, aren't there? This here basically is titled, but it's more of a sentence. After all your kind words about my wife's shop, she decided to make these cool couch pillows featuring our other quarantine creation. Super cute. This comes from Funny Llama 20 on Reddit, and they've made some rune pillows which look awesome. Big fan. All right, this one comes in from Jay-Z Burnett, and it's titled The Matriarch of Hesidius.
It's really cool. I like the texture on the tree.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that. It's kind of cool, isn't it? A little wavy. It looks very Nordic. I think it's like the kind of pattern I'm thinking of, like old mythology kind of like symbols. All right, next up is
skill capes, I'm guessing that's a skill cape.
Oh, sorry, Bruno. Yeah, it did look cool. I like that aesthetics generally anyway. This one is titled Wise Old Man Tribute from Fine Mage. Very
this
cool.
Is amazing. I love the colours so much.
Aesthetics.
This feels weird because it's pretty close to what I have as my background, so yeah. Ooh. Looks great.
It does look really, really cool. All right, and then the next one we have is Player Fashionscape Sketches from free-to-play Milk Tea, and this was sent to us through Discord.
Oh, they're super cute.
Yeah, and you have all the different, there's different players here. With the ats on there, I assume that's their Twitter handles. We've got a Mod Ditto, looking cool. I love Fashionscape in Old School, and these are really cute. Cool. Oh, that's it. So yeah, there's an actual comment here. They've apparently been making free sketches for players who post their characters in the #Fashionscape channel in the Old School RuneScape Discord. It's so cute, is the caption. Cool. I agree. All right. Okay. That, I think, does it for images. There's one point that I want to quickly go into, and then once I've gone into that, we're going to go into something cool and fun with Mod Nin and Lenny. But I want to quickly talk about equipment rebalance, because we recently had to put out a cold fix following yesterday's game update, which did remove the changes that we made to the Granite Hammer and the Obimol, the Tazar Ketem. They were removed from yesterday's game update. Husky, what do we want to say about this? What do you want to say about this? Because I'm asking you because obviously, like, me and you are kind of like dealing with it. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start? Did you see what we posted in the news post?
I didn't see what was put in the news post, but I could talk about
basically,
them.
Hold on. We said we've opted to revert both of these changes as they had an impact on the current meta that we didn't quite anticipate, and that we'll potentially revisit this again in the future. But if we do, we'll make sure to reach out to various communities first and present our findings in their blog. No. I'm not blaming Husky. Someone in the chat said I'm blaming Husky. I'm just asking Husky because he's the best person to, because he was there at the time.
No, you know what? I don't even mind, right? I'll hold my hands up. I'll say, it was my fault. I coded them, so you can assign blame to me for sure. The long story short was it was kind of brought up in a bunch of feedback that, hey, these items were missed, and we're like, oh, yeah, in the discussions, right? You knew Ayiza and Arcane knew, worked on it, and even on top of that, I didn't realize when I was doing it. I was like, oh, it's the Obsidian Mace. I didn't realize it was that mace that has that set effect that thing. I just thought it was another like tier 50. Oh, it's just gonna be better than the Rune Mace. So it's just a huge oversight, right? You know, and people are gonna go, oh my god, terrible J mods, blah 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 blah. But oversights happen, and I know there were a lot of suggestions that were talked about. Oh well, if you just reduce the stats like this, or if you do this and you do this, it could actually be balanced. But the truth of the matter is that this is the sort of thing where we're going to take, like, if we do want to make changes, we want to make sure we do them properly, right? We want to, you know, run the DPS calculations that were just not done because they just weren't, it was appropriate, which was a complete oversight. And yeah, like, you know, we've definitely looked at this and said, hey, we had to do a cold fix for this. We really didn't need to. That wasn't very good. And what processes can we look at and change and make sure that these sorts of oversights don't happen? So yeah, I mean, I'll hold my hands up. That was an oversight on my part. I hope the community had a bit of fun with it while it lasted. It was certainly, there was a lot of drama going on, and oh my god, it's better than the Inquisitor's Mace and all this. And you know, I saw one of those, like, you know, the guy holding out his hand to a butterfly, and like, you know, like it was something like players had gone like, is this best in slot? Like, or like, is Jagex forgot this necklace existed? And like, I was just laughing because I'm like, you know, it's pretty on point, you know.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I'm glad that you basically covered it that way, because I think it's like the only way that it can be said. Really, it was just literally an oversight. The reason why I wanted to bring it up specifically was because I saw quite a fair amount of comments where people were essentially discrediting the level of trust that they could have with us on the equipment rebalance changes. You know, by, you know, a lot of the times I think people have got this kind of notion that, you know, they should put a load of trust into us, that we'll make the right decisions. And, you know, that's great that people do trust us to make changes and such. And a lot of the work that we are doing, like, believe me, and I'm sure Husky will be able to attest to this as well, there have been so many hours put into design, into looking at the data, the figures, like in terms of DPS numbers, the impact it will have with different gear sets, different levels and such. But that's being done for the things that we intended to make, you know, happen as part of equipment rebalance. The Granite Hammer and the Obby Maul were just, as Husky said, to be completely honest with you, weren't really meant to go out. They were brought up as part of a feedback review session where it was like, hey, you know, a fair amount of players have said that we haven't included these. Should we include them? And the next step would be then to, you know, investigate that, having a look into what the impact might be that it would have on certain metas, on different account builds, on DPS meters and all that kind of stuff. And that step just didn't happen, unfortunately, whereas it should have. But the good news is that we made changes, so hopefully it won't happen again. There wasn't really any harm done, apart from a few people lost 39,000 Tockle, which, well, that's really unfortunate. But you've got a cool mace now that you can hold, so you can send your Fashionscape into the hashtag Fashionscape channel on the 2007 Discord, and maybe get your character drawn for free. So, you know, whatever the saying is, every cloud has a silver lining or something. But yeah, that's pretty much how it was. We knew from the start that they shouldn't have been included, or sorry, some of us knew from the start, but it's been quite a lengthy process, that project being moved around with different hands touching it and stuff. So absolutely had some unintended impact on the meta, and hence why we removed it pretty quickly. But that's that. I'm glad that we covered it. Thank you as well, Husky. Let's have a look at what Lenny and Nin have been working on in their free time, shall we?
Cool. So, as Ayiza says, this is something that has been coming out of mine and Nin's sort of free time and Mod Kieran's as well. I really want to stress that this isn't something that's taking away from development time on anything else. This has been kind of a fun programming project for the three of us, just to see if we could do it.
Could
really.
you imagine? You couldn't imagine someone looking at the year ahead and saying, "Oh yes, this is what old school RuneScape needs."
No. Yeah, so basically here we are in probably my favourite place in RuneScape, as quite a few people seem to know. And I'm going to go ahead and challenge Nin to a brand new game here of chess. And we can ignore some of the stuff going on. This is all kind of very rough in the works still. But basically here it is, it's chess. And like I say, it's basically just been a test of, can we actually do this? We didn't really know whether or not we could, and a lot of people have always said that it's not actually going to be possible to do it in RuneScript for various reasons. And kind of just came around when one evening Nin and I were chatting and got a message from Kieran saying, "I've got it. This is how we make chess work. This is how it's possible." And we took a second. We're like, "Oh my god, it actually is. We can do it." But yeah, so start with this is just chess as a whole. You can see you can make whatever moves you want. And currently being Nin's turn now, so he can do
Oh, that's not. I've
whatever it
done
might
my
be.
move. The turn name isn't working at the moment.
Yeah, so we can ignore the turn name, but I believe it is passed back to Nin now.
Oh, yeah. Maybe.
This does, in fact, check for legal moves. I can't move a rook here. And as it happens, Nin has just put me in check there, so I can't make any otherwise legal moves, let's say moving this knight up here, because it keeps me in check. It does all of the checks that it should do, which is not a simple piece of programming, especially in a limited language like ours. There's sort of many hoops that we've had to jump through to get here.
Yeah, it's interesting enough kind of building a chess engine on its own. But to do it in RuneScript, which is kind of old school RuneScape's like proprietary scripting language, it's actually a pretty good scripting language for what it needs to be. It really quickly lets you just like you can fill an environment with characters and you can add interactions to lots of things and everything kind of works together really easily. But when you try and go and do something kind of as complex as chess, which has like a lot of, you need to keep track of like the state of the board, you need to be able to like look into the future to see kind of what's about to happen. It's not quite built for that. So yeah, this has been a bit of a challenge to do in as we say in our free time, but like a pretty fun one. And we found like a lot of things. We found like ways around limitations to kind of make things work. And we also found like a lot of ways, like little ways that we can improve kind of the scripting language. That's something that I work on quite a bit, is the scripting language, how it gets compiled, how it gets run in the engine, what kind of things you can do with it. So working together, we've been able to find like some cool ways to improve it, which will hopefully lead to like, we'll be able to do some cooler stuff in the future, more like fun things along this line, if we so desire.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the entire process of making it, I hate the number of times that I wrote little comments in my script saying, "Trust me, this will work," or "Yes, I know this looks wrong. It's fine."
It was about, we were sitting, it was me and Lenny, we were sitting at his computer together at like 2 a.m, and he copied the drafts folder, or checkers. He copied the drafts folder and then said, "Trust me on this," and did a find and replace for the word drafts and the word chess. And I looked at him and I was like, "What are you doing, mate?" And it didn't break. Everything kind of worked, so I was very impressed.
I have seen a couple of people asking about a few specific things in the chat, and as it happens, we have implemented them. So if we go ahead and start a new game, we can show a couple of funky mechanics as well as an actual checkmate. So to start with, I saw people asking for en passant, everyone's favourite chess move that a lot of people don't know exists.
You can't have a chess engine without en passant.
Oh, I'm not doing that right, am I?
Now move the one next
if I now move these 2 spaces,
we
have en passant. We have everyone's first favourite chess move that they don't know exists. And then if we go ahead, a few more moves.
Oh, man's going for a queenside castle.
We should now be able to also castle. Everyone's second favourite move. I will also preface that Nin and I are not good chess players. We do not know how to play chess for the life of us.
I know how to play chess, kind of.
Yeah, debatable.
Do you want to?
One other thing to quickly show. Oh, sorry. If we challenge one more game, and hope that we can remember how to do this.
All right, I'm white. All right.
and we can correctly identify checkmate, stalemate, everything like that. And
One piece of trivia, that's the
just kind of
fastest
works.
checkmate you can do.
It
Also,
is.
another piece of trivia, pawn promotion exists because it kind of mirrors real life. If an infantry soldier got to the end of the enemy's front lines, then they'd be promoted. I don't know at what point they'd be promoted into a queen, but there's some historical accuracy way back there. That's a nice piece of chess trivia.
But there we have it.
Cool.
There is chess. And since it's something that the chat have mentioned quite a few times, I do want to sort of reiterate, this has just been a fun sort of out-of-hours programming challenge more than anything. This isn't something that's taking away time from working on any other kind of content. This has just been us having a bit of fun outside of work.
Yep, 100%. Important to say that. We did bring it in and show the team, and then the QA team looked at us like, "Excuse me, you want us to QA chess?" So, not sure how that process is going to go. But yeah, this hasn't been like eating up space in the roadmap at all. It's been kind of just helping us learn a bit, helping us improve some tools, and just be a bit fun. Do you think that about wraps it up? Are there any more things in the chat?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to hop off the live stream here. Actually, I don't have too much to add to the Q&A, so I'll just say goodbye here. Thanks for having me, and have a good rest of the live stream.
And just like that, we are back in the room. Hold on, I'm about to time someone out in the chat because they are doing my head in. There we go. I will see you in 10 minutes. All right. Just to finally reiterate one more time, as Lenny said, but Lenny and Nin worked on that in their free time. They had no impact on any development that was being done in old school. So if you want to be mean and rude and a poo-poo head about someone doing something that they enjoy in time that they're not getting paid for, as opposed to other things that they could be potentially not working on because it's not in their work hours, then maybe direct your comments elsewhere or just refrain from posting them. And think about how awesome it is that people get the opportunity to work on things that they enjoy, that some other people also like to see. But hopefully you enjoyed that little showcase of chess. I never thought that it would be possible to see chess in old school RuneScape. That is super, super cool. Lenny, what was kind of like the biggest challenge that you faced in putting that together?
So there's a couple of things with it. One being that the entire reason that people have always said it's sort of not going to be possible is that it's just a lot of processing there, and something that we do not want to be running on the game server. But we're also kind of aware that we shouldn't always just trust what the client says is correct and believe it, because the client can be wrong. And Kieran basically just sent me a message one night and was like, "Oh my god, we don't trust the client, we don't do it on the server, we trust two players' clients, we actually send it back and forth and get them to verify it." And we basically had to just invent some kind of networking protocol within RuneScript to send pieces of information, condensed chess moves and board states from one client to another. So that was an interesting little challenge. And then also just, so I think as I was kind of doing the majority of the chess scripting here, both Nin and Kieran had kind of been Googling little bits of how to program chess, and I just didn't. I just programmed how I understood chess to work. And I gather that it is the case anyway, that there's not really a sort of a cheat to understanding what checkmate is programmatically in a game of chess. You really just need to check, are there any legal moves available? But you get into some weird states where you need to be looking a couple of moves ahead. And so as well as just keeping track of the board states at any point, I'm keeping track of 3 different board states for different hypothetical moves having taken place. And it just gets very confusing.
It sounds like it is. Yeah, I'm confused enough as it is. I'm glad I'm not a programmer or a computer because I don't want to have to deal with that. I guess, so for those that might not be interested in chess, is there anything that you could take away from what, the time that you spent working on this that might actually be usable elsewhere in the game for future pieces of content that aren't chess?
Yeah, I mean, however much of a sort of strange, just pointless activity it's been, it's sort of really highlighted a few things around client and server interaction in old school and how we can actually trigger events on the server from the client, and it's really very limited. And as soon as Nin, as somebody who works on the engine and client, sort of realized just how limited it was, he was like, oh my god, this isn't good. We need to change this. We can do this so much better if we just had this extra functionality. And it opens up just a lot of possibilities for things to run a lot more nicely, basically. Things in the settings menu where you might notice something takes a moment to sort of really update what it's doing. We can just sort of streamline those processes with these learnings.
Okay. There you go then. So yeah, there is good to come of it, even if we never see chess actually implemented in the process itself has helped us learn new things. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Lenny, for showing it us, and great job on it as well. It's again something I never thought I would see happen. So let's jump into some questions. We've got a fair few to get through today. A good chunk of time though, so we should be fine. The first one comes in from Dried Wets, and they say, almost a month has passed since the Wilderness Survey was rolled out for us to fill out, and since then we have heard nothing else about it. Will we ever hear about the results/plan of action regarding the survey? I've spoke loads today, but I'll just quickly get this one out of the way, since as I'm the one that's working on it. Will you ever hear about the results of it / a plan of action regarding the survey? Yes. First of all, there's one thing that I want to make clear, and apologies if this is something that people don't want to hear, but we're going to be doing a lot more surveys going forward consistently with a lot of projects, because they have been really helping us when it comes to putting together design ideas, validating the content that we want to put together in a blog and such. But that doesn't mean that we're always going to share those survey results with you. And it's not that we want to be secretive about it, but sometimes there's not really much that we can share from a survey result that we can't just write in a blog, because a lot of what comes from those surveys will be helping us make those decisions. So what you see in a blog is most likely going to have came from one of the surveys. So I don't want to set this expectation that every survey we do, we're going to share the results with you for every single question. That being said, there are definitely some results from surveys that I personally want to share with you where we can, and I'm sure the rest of the team would like to share with you as well, because it provides a good level of insight, not only to how the community feel, but it also, I think, gives a good understanding, a bit of perspective into how we take your feedback and then turn that into something that we can then share back with you. In terms of the Wilderness one specifically, I've got one and a bit projects left to work on before I move back over onto the Wilderness stuff. So the first part was getting that survey out, which was what was intended for April. Essentially, April was that information gathering stage for the Wilderness Changes project. I think in the roadmap, it listed it starting in April. That was us starting it off. I think a lot of people also maybe got confused. I didn't help the matter either by saying on Twitter that, you know, work on that starts in April. That doesn't necessarily mean development work would start in April, or that you'd start seeing blogs or polls come through in April. That's very much a process that's going to be going on for the next couple of months. We don't want to be holding out, obviously, but there are other things that were already agreed on before then. But in the next, I'll say in the next few weeks, I think that's a pretty good estimation, is when we expect to have all of the stuff from the survey put together into a blog and shared with you, so that you can have an idea of what is to come with the Wilderness Changes, and then they'll start being developed from there. We also would like to put together a potential stream. Me and Sween were talking about this, where we actually do go over the recent survey results for both the Wilderness Changes and the equipment rebalance changes, because they really were very interesting, honestly, seeing the results from that, and I think you'll find it interesting too. But again, don't want to say that we'll share them all the time, but those two we will. So yeah, in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, you'll see a blog that will have a lot of the changes that we want to offer for the Wilderness, Wilderness bosses, stuff like Rev Caves, Wilderness Slayer Caves and stuff like that. For anyone asking about Deadman Mode, I see it in the chat. There's nothing we can share with you regarding Deadman Mode at the moment, other than Mod Husky has put together a design now for Deadman Mode that is currently in team review. So once that's all ready, once the team have approved it, once we've been able to make any changes that we might need to, we'll get that put together into a blog, shared with you all. You can have a look at that, but don't expect that in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a little bit longer for the Deadman information to come out. However, very aware that people typically with Deadman want to know when it's coming, so that you can typically, maybe book some time off. And as soon as we're able to give you that information, I'd like to be able to give it to you as well. So yeah, just have to bear with us whilst we get everything together. Cool. I know I spoke a lot there. Does anyone else have anything to add regarding Wilderness?
No, I think you covered it fairly well. I think people just like, it's the time between getting the survey, analyzing it, putting it to team for feedback, getting a design based on that, getting feedback on the design, getting that into a blog, and then getting it to the player. It's not a, oh, you got the results, where's the blog like a week later? Yeah. So
yeah, it is always difficult, and I don't like bringing it up because it is kind of like, I don't want to say making excuses, but at the same time is because it's not making excuses, because that's just how the process is. Like, things do take time, but I saw a lot of comparisons, you know, especially this week, where people have been like, oh, within a week you're able, less than a week, within a few days you're able to turn around, you know, new reward ideas for Theatre of Blood hard mode, and that's with the new cosmetic variant as opposed to the armors. But you can't do anything for PvP in what was meant to be PvP month, which I don't think I ever said April was PvP month. I think that was just an assumption because, again, the scheduling. But for an artist to put together concept art, I don't want to take away from artists now because they're very skilled, but it takes like, it will take them a couple of hours to put that together, and we share it with you, and if you like it, then cool. It's very different from sharing an entirely fleshed out design document that has new content, changes to content, new rewards, mechanical changes, drop table changes. Like, that takes a significant amount of time. Drawing a picture, in comparison, doesn't have to follow as many of the processes, so a little bit different. But yeah, we can move on at least to the next question now, and this comes in from Strobe Lobe, and they say, "Hi team, would you consider making Olms' head visibly distinct between the unique phases as a small visual update? There's some amazing concept work is already done, which I think we can show you. So we can bring that up. Here we go. So yeah, just a little bit of a change to show you which phase the Olm is currently on: Flame, Crystal, Acid, and the final phase. Which I think final phase is probably the easiest one to figure out anyway, because the color change is already there, right? Any Coxers in the chat?
I like it. Looks cool.
I think some sort of visual distinction works. Like, obviously you get the message in the box, but you know, not everybody looks at the chat box, and sometimes you might, you know, and this matters a lot. You know, am I preparing for an acid walk or a flame skip, or you know, that sort of thing. So no, I think if we can get the artist time to do this, I think this would be a pretty cool like usability, like, was not usability, what's it called, accessibility change as well.
Yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of the crystal one because it looks like he has like loads of crystal acne, but the other three the crystal one just feels weird. I don't know why.
Yeah, I feel you. Maybe the horns could just change color or something instead of
actually
suddenly getting the crystal pimples.
That'd be a good change. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we could potentially look at putting that in a future poll, maybe. So someone from the team could make sure that's kept for our backlog. I think it's too late to try and add it in now on poll 75, and that poll is already big enough as it is. But potentially for something a little bit later on. Okay, next question from Ters. This says, towards the end of 2020, there was a poll question about adding a game zone to the Grand Exchange that passed. Has this been scrapped, or are there plans to add this anytime soon?
Yeah, it has not been scrapped. It is still something that's going to be coming to the game. I'm not sure if there's a date that we have given or want to give, but it's not something that's been forgotten. It's been worked on. I will say, though, chess is not coming along with it.
I'd assume if chess came out, it would be included, though, on those areas.
Yeah, I believe Mod Melee, when she started working on it, actually sent me a couple of messages saying, cool, so you've done this work on chess, just want to make sure that I am sort of accounting for it in the work being done over here.
I don't think they'd have enjoyed that being thrown on them like, oh, here's chess. Good luck. Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, it is still coming. I don't want to give a date either. I don't actually know what the date is, but it's probably not a wise idea. But I can't imagine it's too far away because I've seen it a few times now in different reviews internally and such. So yeah, cool. Soon. Godric Light. Hello. Hi. Is it possible to make the poll questions more granular in their propositions? Thanks. For context, the recent proposed Quest and Theatre of Blood easy/hard modes question are co-signed with either the quest or the rewards instead of being separated to allow the community a bit more finer control over what they like and dislike. Okay, so I guess this is making it so that the questions are a little bit more split up. Sometimes things get grouped, sometimes they don't. Interesting one. I'll touch on this one last, I guess, if anyone else has an opinion to go into.
Very similar to what you're gonna. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that we generally do try to keep things granular. I think the only time we tend to group things are if it makes sense to not have them grouped. And sometimes we get feedback from that during the poll blog stage, and we go, yeah, actually, we probably could split those. I've seen most split questions before that we didn't initially have split. So, I mean, if there's specific questions people think should be split, then maybe we could look into it. This.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. Honestly, the only real answer I can give to you, Godric, is that for the most part we are really granular with our questions. Sometimes questions get grouped together because it makes sense for them to be grouped together. For example, with the Theatre of Blood one, I wasn't here when this came together, so apologies to the other members of the CM team that worked on that in the time that I was on holiday. But I would imagine that it was a case of looking at it and it was like, okay, for easy and hard mode to be a thing anyway, we're going to need to develop the system, which will work for them both. But for easy to be enabled, or the story mode, then it has to come with the quest. So there's no real point having the quest to introduce you going into the instance and being able to go through in an easy version if the easy version didn't come alongside with the quest, because then the quest wouldn't be able to be developed. So those two had to be bundled in together. And then putting those in with the hard mode, I guess, just made even more sense, because the hard mode relies on there being the system to change the modes, which would be developed alongside the quest. But just adding in hard mode probably would have been maybe too much work to justify it. I don't know, but that could be that it was reliant on them. It could also just be that they put it in there that way originally, waited for the feedback, and if there was a load of feedback screaming to say they need to be split, then they would have been split. Typically, I think that's the way I approach it anyway, is that, if a question doesn't need to be granular to begin with, then don't make it granular, because our polls are pretty long anyway. The longer a poll gets, the less likely people are to spend the time reading through everything and answering the questions properly. A little bit different when it comes to the poll 75, 74, 73 and such, because they offer a lot of content changes, but they're typically smaller changes. This is adding in a new mode, looking at new unique rates, less rates or no rates at all for the easy version and such. So yeah, we can. You just have to let us know really if there's a burning desire to make it so that some questions are split out, then we can absolutely do that. But there are obviously occasions where it just doesn't make sense to split questions, and they should be grouped up. I think there's this. I see it sometimes where people feel like we have an agenda of it's our way of making sure content gets added into the game. It's like you have all or nothing, and it's just this one-stop approach, and you can only have this if we also have this. But at the end of the day, the reality is that this game's success is based on the people that are playing it. So if it was something that people didn't genuinely want, and us grouping it in together was going to cause that to fail, then it would make way more sense for us to split it out and take away a certain part of that than have everything be gone, from a bringing out content for certain players perspective. So yeah, ultimately it's just if we don't really feel like there's any need to split a question out, we won't until we're told to. So
yeah,
hopefully I answered that one well enough.
I just checked the blog. The only things that are grouped as story mode has to be with a quest. Even 2 isn't dependent on story mode, which is the hard mode. So you could vote for a hard mode without a story mode. It's just obviously if we add the quest, we don't want it to then be it's tied to normal TOB, because that's then a fairly difficult raid, beyond what a quest cape would be. And story mode's purpose isn't easy mode TOB. I've seen people do this a lot. It is to give people an idea of what the content's about, but realistically it is just for the story perspective, right? We don't anticipate people really doing this and farming this. for like the loot and stuff. It is really just a case of, you know, I think Mod Ed said that there could be elements of where the story's going that might make sense to know about the events that are happening in the theater and that sort of thing. And I think one of the quests, A Taste of Hope, kind of alludes to what's happening in the theater anyway, and it's just a chance to experience it, you know?
Cool. So yeah, again, I've just read through the blog now. Actually, it was probably a good shout. I should have done that beforehand. But yeah, as you say, question 1 is the quest with story mode. There's no point having a story mode without the quest. Let's just face it, it didn't work before. We pulled the blog when we looked at easy mode on its own. Question 2 is hard mode with improved rewards. That one we probably could split out, where you have hard mode and then a separate question of should we improve the rewards. But the thing is, from what we gather, most people want there to be improved rewards with a harder version, so it makes sense again to offer the two together. And there would be no point having improved rewards without there being a hard mode. So they're both relying on each other anyway, and then the others are split out separately. However, I do think we are looking at making some further changes to this blog that will be coming out later this evening or early tomorrow, because we've got a new design that we potentially want to look at with the scythe. I know there's been a lot of feedback about that, and we may look at potentially splitting out the actual cosmetic rewards themselves so that you can vote on which ones should or shouldn't be added, just to give that level of granularity. So yeah. All right, cool. Next question. This comes from Machiavel 2020. As Theatre of Blood story mode is going to be the 149th quest, and A Kingdom Divided is now set to be the 150th quest, with the planned 150th to now be the 151st. It's a mouthful. Would it not make sense to make A Kingdom Divided to be the 151st quest and the 150th staying put? Can you remember what Ed said? Because I know he had a really good reply to this somewhere. Where are you, Ed?
I think like just the logic of saying make AKD the 151st quest will the quest like numbers are dependent on the order they're released, so we can't just say we released 149 then but this is actually 151 and not 150, because by definition it is 150, right?
I'm guessing they mean delay A Kingdom Divided by however many months until you decide to do the other one, which at that point it's like, well, the Kingdom Divided is already in development and we don't want to just put it away for God knows how long until we finish the 150th quest and then release it after the 150th quest that we planned for. It's unfortunate, but we'll do it. We still plan to make a really cool quest. It just might not be the same number that we wanted to originally, which was the 150th.
I think it's worth noting that A Kingdom Divided is still a really epic quest, and being sort of something that's so fresh to old school, like it's not a sort of storyline that crosses over with RuneScape 3. It's something really unique. I think that makes it for a really good milestone number still, even if it's not the quest that we originally had planned for the milestone.
And that doesn't mean the quest isn't coming for the milestone. It just means that we, took it out of our roadmap because, we want to make changes to the roadmap, and that quest could come at a later point, right? It just doesn't have a symbolic number. And I agree with what Lenny said. Like, AKD is, having seen all the play tests and the reviews of it, we do our sprint reviews, it really is shaping up to be a pretty damn awesome quest.
There's one part in particular I'm a big fan of. Big fan, but no leaks here. Someone previously suggested maybe making it so that the a night in the theatre is a mini quest as opposed to it being a quest. And Ed's response to that kind of approach as well was essentially that even if we were to change a night at the theatre to a mini quest, it doesn't make the old quest 150 happen any sooner. So again, it just comes down to it being the number, and I don't really think the number is that big of a deal. If it's 151, it's 151. It's about the quest and the content really than the number associated to it. Yes, it would be cool because it's like 150 is, it's like a clean number, but what's the difference between 150 and 151? Well, one number. Yeah. So I'd rather that we waited and made sure that we gave you a really cool quest and the content that you kind of want now, at least closer to what you want. We're bringing in Theatre of Blood, hard mode with, the Fasani's Nightmare that was touched on in the leadership Q&A last week, and then obviously League's Dead Man and all that kind of stuff, then the alternatives. All All right, so the next question comes in from Bosha Badu. Can you look at elite clue rewards? Currently terrible and not worth doing unless you want to fill log slots. Chance of third age is worse than what was polled, worse than hards, question mark. They should feel more rewarding than hard clues.
Ads about this, I've always seen elite clues as kind of like the clue I'm never going to touch, because I'd rather just do a master clue. And the fact that the loot isn't very good kind of reinforces that. But yeah, I'd be down for it.
I definitely see it as two issues that are separate, right? I don't think just saying the third age rate is better fixes elite clues, because it doesn't for the vast majority of players. I think that elites are just bad regardless of the third age rate. There really is very little reason to do them once you get the 200 for the reward. But the third age chance, I believe, used to be like reasonable and in a better place, and then we added more gilded items, and because that table, if you can imagine, like there were 10 slots in the table and one of those 10 is elite. I don't know the exact numbers, I just said 10 as a placeholder. When that becomes like 12 or 13 slots and one of them's third age, that chance of getting third age like increases dramatically. I think Mod Ayiza said she was wanting to look into this sort of stuff and look to see if we could do it, because there are ways to keep like the third age at the 1 in 10 it was on release, and that might even be considered a bug, right? Where we accidentally increased the rate beyond what it used to be, and we didn't need to. So yeah, I feel like both issues could be addressed.
Cool. I remember
by 1 in 10, it's on that super rare table. It's a 1 in 10, so people are talking. I know people panicking, thinking that third age is now going to be a 1 in 10 from elites.
Yeah, you have to be very careful with wording around these parts. I do remember seeing. I think we discussed it recently, actually, in one of our weekly catch-up calls. So yeah, something that we're aware of at least, anyway. So can we take a look at it? I think we already are, but it's definitely something that we would be polling. So look out for that in the future, I guess, at some point. All right, next question from Amaranthine, maybe. Are future polls for the Hunter Guild and Runecraft minigame proposed in December's Gazette planned for this year? Good question. Maybe. I can't remember, is the completely honest answer.
So I think the thing to remember with that Gazette is we said, here's a bunch of stuff we worked on in ideation. And the team works on a bunch of like things in ideation beyond even what we showed. And it's mostly just to get feedback on this sort of stuff. So I'd be interested. I'd kind of like to, if we get to a more regular release schedule of Gazettes, we could actually, say, here's like another round of 5 ideation ideas and their summary, and like maybe only one of those 5 ever gets pulled forward based on like the players, the ones the players like the most, and that might be a cool way to start using Gazettes. But I think it was just a way to give an insight into what the devs have been doing in their ideation. I think players seem to enjoy that, but obviously they need to get used to the idea that we're using very placeholder graphics and models and stuff like that. I think the Guardians of Gilnor one had an NPC shouting information that would probably be in an interface, like a nice polished, clean interface if we had actually worked on it,
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So yeah, I guess I should have also touched on the fact that just because we've mentioned it, there's no guarantee that we'd ever even poll them, really. But I think there was quite a lot of interest in them, so that's why I'm saying maybe we might be. I just don't know. Sorry. Tiz Tok Jad, what are you doing here? Has asked if we can increase the wonder range of Abyssal Demons in the catacombs by 1 more tile. The way the rooms are shaped, you regularly get dragged just 1 tile too far and lose aggro on them.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I remember doing Abyssal Demons in the catacombs in leagues, and it was pretty awkward, like trying to barrage them properly. Because sometimes you go.
So you pull them in underneath the little there's like a little section with a it's like a tunnel that you kind of like bring them into, right?
Yeah, it's like a little bridge, I guess. Yeah.
Bridge would have been a better word to describe it. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
maybe
I know the range was increased by 1. The range was increased by 1. I'm assuming.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, didn't we look at changing the layout of that room? Wasn't that in one of the blogs, or I just made that up? Or did someone just mention that in the team, and I've probably just like leaked something I shouldn't have done? I think we said about looking at changing the
I
room
remember.
layout to make it easier for like, that as a barrage spot. Maybe it's in Pulse 75. I don't know. Someone find it. I'll go on to the next question for now. But yeah, we could do if we aren't already. This is from Chuck is Satan. Could you add a confirmation chat box when undergoing a name change? The buttons to look up a name and to actually change it are super close together.
I don't see any harm in adding a confirmation box. I do get it's not like the clearest thing, because like you set your name, and then to like actually change your name, you have to click on the name you set. So it doesn't really show the player that they'll change their name to that. You're just clicking on the button with the name you chose. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that. But if you're always scared, you could always just use the website to change, which has like more confirmations in place. Or just don't press the buttons.
Cool. I think it would be a good idea to change like that confirmation box. I think a lot of people have accidentally changed their name without realizing before. It's a bit frustrating. Quick update on the 21st of this month. So last week's game update. The catacombs, Abyssal Demons have had their maximum walking range increased slightly too. This will allow people to group more easily between rooms. So maybe you haven't been there recently. Maybe it needs to be changed a little bit more to an extra tile. Jad, potentially. We can maybe have a look at it again. It might not be far enough, but we did change it, so we can probably change it again quite easily. All right then. I think we'll get 2 more questions done quickly. Druid hasn't told me to go home yet. So this comes in from, please don't, the Dunko, asking if it would be possible to add a faster method of smithing cannonballs similar to Blast Furnace, but a fee of 100 GP or so per cannonball, so it's not as profitable and less likely to be botted.
I had a quick look at this, just using the money-making thing on the wiki, and it's like 140 GP profit. So even that might not stop them being botted, because, they're still making 40 GP profit. But this feels like a question from an Iron Man perspective, right? And the thing that I don't like about this suggestion specifically is that you're essentially just turning GP into cannonballs, or GP in time. And it's the same reason I don't like the whole like Blood Rune situation and Blood Rune packs. I've been quite open about my stance on this. Iron Man should, as much as we can avoid it, it shouldn't really be, I'm going to use GP to get rid of my problems, because that's what a main is, right? And, Blood Rune, some Blood Rune packs have been a contentious thing in the community, and there's, we've mentioned we'd like to do things potentially with another piece of content later, and we'd recently opened up the Priff shop to not have the same sort of, like, the runes increasing, so maybe that helps a little. I'd still like a content solution for that, but I don't really want to do the same for cannonballs. And if there was like a faster way to make cannonballs, to me it would have to be some sort of unlock that made sense, that was tied to something. And I still wouldn't even want it to be like just faster in AFK. I want it to be like more like interactive if we went that route. And it's also just a really hard thing to balance. There's a lot of, like, again, I'm answering this from an Iron Man perspective because I feel like this is mostly an Iron Man concern, but there is definitely a balance for metas in terms of, okay, it's never efficient to use cannonballs, but it is a decent thing to do AFK that can speed up your active like content time when you're doing things. So, you'll never actually make them to do shamans, but if you do, your shaman time is less as the result of, having a bit more AFK time. And there is sort of that balance between them. So I'm not really a big fan of speeding it up even too much, because I don't think that like some sort of heavy cannonball meta would be good, because it drastically changes like anything from passive ranged XP to slayer rates to everything. To me, cannonballs are always just supposed to be that, like, they're in a good place, I think, for Iron Man, where it's that nice bonus, when you've got them, but you're never going to be able to sustain them.
Yeah, we've spoken about this a few times, and one suggestion that I did like was make it so that you could make cannonballs at the blast furnace by adding like a cannonball mold. Obviously, if we made it so that you can make 4 cannonballs from 1 bar, that might be a bit too OP. So I don't think you only use 1 coal for a steel bar at the blast furnace. But if you made it so it's like this special mold can only make 2 cannonballs per bar, maybe that could help with the balancing concerns, and it still wouldn't be like good profit because you're obviously not making as many bars, but as many balls, but it wouldn't be too bad if you had a ton of steel and you want to use it. Or iron in this case.
Interesting. Okay, thanks for that. Let's wrap things up on a pretty big question. It seems like a pretty big question anyway. I guess it depends on how we answer it. This one comes from Cohen C, and they say, do you guys see the massive price drops of high-end PVM items as a problem? If so, what way do you think it should be solved?
Economies and markets are always very interesting, right? Because they're completely player-driven, but at the same time, the things that we do will still affect them, right? So, you know, we could say there's a new piece of content coming up and prices will obviously go up. I think there's several reasons to it. Obviously, there was the big pandemic that we had a while ago, which caused a lot more people to come and play the game, which increased a lot more of these items coming into the game and a lot more demand for them. But slowly but surely, the world's kind of opening back up again. I feel like there's probably less people playing the game, but all those items that were created while we had a surge of players, you know, suddenly leave a bunch of items and people are selling, and sometimes people liquidate their banks to, you know, I'm going to quit for the next like couple months or so and I'll liquidate my banks and all that sort of stuff. And then what happened with like economy and stuff is as soon as something starts dropping by like a bit, it panics and cascades, right? But I don't think that can necessarily be to blame because so much of the PVM market is going down. It can almost be attributed to the fact that there hasn't been a significant piece of PVM content in a while, and it probably doesn't help that things like combat achievements were delayed, and the fact that ERB is still ongoing, and people have uncertainty. You know, people are genuinely like, maybe I'll just cash in now, so I don't, you know, because you guys are still in the kind of unknown about everything we might want to do. So there's an element of people saying, I'm just going to cash in now. I'm happy with this gold level, and I'll buy back stuff once I know, you know, what's getting buffed and what's getting nerfed, right? So I think that once that passes, it'll help. Hopefully combat achievements will help. I mean, that's just going to make more people PVM across the game and need stuff. And then, you know, Fazani's Nightmare we spoke about. Oh, we haven't actually spoken about this stream, but we've spoken about last stream. Top hard mode. All of these are little bits of PVM content that might make people want gear. And then, obviously, future down the line, if we start introducing more actual content for PVM, that will help as well. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. I see chat screaming about item syncs, and an item sync only works if the sync is worth it. It seems like an obvious statement, but it's not just a case of, oh, this thing consumed that thing. You need to be getting something more for syncing the item. And that means they need to be kind of creative in how they're done. RuneScape 3's invention does this by converting items to XP, essentially. You know, and XP is always a valuable thing people want, but short of us doing something like that, it needs to be kind of worth it, right, for what you're getting on the other end. So yeah, item syncs are definitely something the team are looking at and considering, but it's really hard to do something on a grand scale, right? There's always going to be, we can make specific item syncs for specific items, but that's not going to help other items. So yeah, I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. I'm curious to know how other people feel.
Yeah, I
think you
agree.
Could...
You go ahead.
No, I've spoken enough, Bruno. I want to hear from you.
All right. Yeah, I think another issue is just supply and demand. For example, for me, I've done some Chambers as Eric. I've gotten a few prayer scrolls. I've only used one of each of those prayer scrolls. Like, what do I do with all the other ones? Just sell them to the GE. Eventually, everyone's going to have a prayer scroll, and those prayer scrolls aren't really going to be worth much, so the price of them drops down a lot because no one really wants to buy more of them. That's why, on release, a prayer scroll is 400 mil, and now it's like 400k, I think, for the arcane one. So that's one issue, and we can't really, like Husky said, like unless the...
I was just going to say, I mean, one of the other issues with the prayer scrolls, like, I hate to say it, but it was kind of the community's fault as well, because when they were released, they were pretty rare, and they were pretty rare for a good reason. It's because, you know, hindsight's a beautiful thing, and knowing that as more and more of them come into the game, they're a one-time use only, one-time only unlock, you don't really want a huge quantity of them coming out, because obviously if you do, then they go down in value because there's, you know, more supply than there is demand. And I remember on the release of Chambers, as a player at the time, there was a huge outroar from the community about how rare they were, because, you know, some people were paying like 400-500 mil for the deck scroll. It's like, it's ridiculous that we have to pay that much money for, you know, to unlock a prayer. And yeah, you know what, you're right, it was ridiculous on release, because of course that's when new items are coming in. But I think if that had just been left to settle for a couple of months, and it would have been, you would have seen a pretty good price. I think that the drasticness of how fast that has dropped in price would have been a lot less noticeable than it has now. But as a result of feedback and overwhelming feedback at the time from the community, those scrolls were made more common. So the price of them went down, they were more affordable. And there's quite a few examples of things where that happens. It's like we'll release a boss. Oh, this boss doesn't have a good enough drop table. It doesn't give us enough consistent money. It sucks. We want a reason to be doing it. So it's like, okay, we make the drop table better. Now more people are consistently farming that boss because it has a good drop table for consistent GP, which means that they're going to be staying there for longer than they would typically, which it doesn't really matter if they get those uniques anymore or not because they're making consistent GP. So overall, the amount of people farming the bosses is higher. The amount of uniques coming into the game is higher. The price of those uniques go down. And, I think that's, again, going back to the whole drop table design is why something like God Wars Dungeon works so well. Similar with the Nightmare, although I think the Nightmare itself has a few other areas that are problematic. But there's, the same drop table ideology has kept those items at a somewhat valuable rate. That content has been out for over a year now. I think is it? Was it 2020? It came out. It wasn't it?
Yeah, came out 2020 in February.
March. It was March.
February.
Or February. Okay, February. There we go. I'm writing like the blog for Fasani's Nightmare. I should know. That's done a whole year. So compared to other pieces of content that we've released recently, those rewards I think have held quite a higher value than they would have if it was a similar GP per hour to Hydra, for example, without uniques. So it goes both ways. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we obviously do as much as we can for the community, but I think sometimes the community needs to remember that you do have a lot of control with the things that you can request and the changes that you can make. But maybe those aren't always the best for the long-term health of the game, potentially.
There was another change that was made that, people talk about, oh, Dex is great. Even Dex is falling in price, like, people are noticing that. But for the longest time, Dex was a solid 70 mil and Arcane was like 2 mil, right? There was a time when that was it. We split the prayer scrolls. They used to be one item and people complained that, oh, I don't want to have to pay, I'll pay 200 mil for Dex, but I don't want to pay 200 mil for Augury. And that might have still been fine to have them tied together. And I mean, if you actually look at the DPS difference from like upgrading from Eagle Eye to Rigor, compared to like going from Blowpipe to T-Bow, I think in most cases Rigor comes out ahead.
Rigor is so overpowered and needs to be nerfed. That's all I'm saying. It is so strong. I can't believe that it's just in the game, honestly.
People would pay 200, 250 mil for Rigor and it would be seen as worth it. But people were still like in the day like, oh, I just want to unlock this prayer. It would have been actually, I think.
It is like quite literally the biggest DPS increase that you can get from any ranged upgrade. I think it is so huge, literally so huge. And to think that it's just a couple of tens of mils now is absurd. But hey ho, it is what it is. That's just obviously going to happen, and as time goes on. But
we're talking like just nerf the rates back, just undo all the stuff now. It's too late, really, for this thing. The damage is done. There's so many in the economy. Unless we just delete all the scrolls that are on and hope you're not someone who does that, then we can't really like.
Don't worry, by the way. I'm not planning on having an agenda where everything gets nerfed. All right, equipment rebalance for now is where it's at. We're not going to suddenly add Rigor in there, but I do think it's broken. All right, I've massively overran. I apologise to everyone. But I did want to get that last question out there. Thank you, Husky and Bruno, for it. Lenny, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think these two have covered it pretty well, or the three of you rather.
Cool. You just got chess on the mind. You're thinking about what was it?
Chess on the mind.
On passant and castling or something like that. All right, let's
always.
quickly go through some announcements before we wrap up. Exclamation mark game update ahead of the release of A Kingdom Divided. We've been working hard on reworking the Arceus spellbook. Try out the new spells by jumping into one of the special beta worlds today. This week's update also brought some changes to the Cam Dozal Ruins and Temporos. Exclamation mark game update for that one. Exclamation mark TOB. That's Tango Oscar Bravo, I think. Cool. Last week, we started speaking about A Night at the Theatre and 2 new Theatre of Blood modes. Following your feedback, we've made some changes to the rewards for the hard mode. Check out the blog to see what's changed with exclamation mark TOB. Have a look at that. All right, if you haven't already, make sure to check out the recently updated news post for Poll 75 as well, !Poll 75. These focus around mid to late game PVM changes. So take a look at the 50 plus questions before voting starts tomorrow. We've had a serious amount of information come out this week, folks, as well as last. So please make sure that you are checking everything. All right, everything. Sorry, I shouldn't say think. I'll get told off for that. Merch 2021 marks 20 years of RuneScape, and we've added more merch to celebrate. You can celebrate in style with a special black and gold map of Gillinor available as a print or a tee. And that's not all we're celebrating either, as Angelscapes has now designed a mammoth 200 official pins and keyring for us. So treat yourself to the new Void Seal pin, Thieving Skill Cape keyring, or check out the 200th design limited edition Fire Cape keyring. Visit the store today with !Merch. And lastly, we have recently been made aware of an issue where players in Old School are experiencing some intermittent lag during gameplay. We are looking to gather more data on this issue so that we can investigate further to see if we can determine a cause for this. If you've experienced this during your sessions, use !support to access a forum post where you can list the information that we require. And I think that is everything that I have to cover. Any closing words from anyone else?
Nope.
No. Okay, well, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for those of you that have joined me. Bruno, Husky, Lenny, thank you so much for setting everything up. Druid, with the assistance of Spear temporarily, so I hear. Thank you so much to Sani and Light for helping out gather all the questions, moderating chat, and being fantastic. All the other JMods that have been engaging with the chat as well. And of course, all of you wonderful folks at home that have been watching and making these possible. Have a fantastic evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.